Hello friends, we all love to keep our savings in fixed deposits and earn good interest on it, right? But have you ever wondered if the banks only pays us interest and do not lend out to receive interest, then how will they ever survive? The interest expense is the amount paid on the deposits accepted by the bank. It tells us about the cost of funds with respect to deposits. Interest expense is a non-operating expense shown in the income statement. It represents interest payable on any borrowings such as bonds, loans, convertible debt or any lines of credit. Now, what is the importance of it? The amount of interest expense has a direct bearing on the profitability, especially for a companies with a huge debt load. Heavily indebted companies may have a hard time servicing their debt loads during economic downturns. The lower the percentage, the better it is. While interest expense is tax deductible for companies, in an individual's case, it depends on his or her jurisdiction. And now, what is the impact of this? The interest expense should not be too high for any banks. If it is high, it would mean that the bank's cost of funds is very high, which means that the bank is accepting deposits and paying interest on it, but is unable to deploy the same to generate higher returns on those deployed funds, which will affect the profitability adversely. Lower the interest expense, better it is for any bank or financial institution. Now let us understand the formula. Interest expended to total funds means interest expense divided by the total deposits into 100. Suppose a bank ABC has an interest expense of rupees 60,000 and its total deposits is near around 1 crore. Then interest expense to total funds is 60,000 divided by 1 crore into 100, which means 6%. It is presumed that a lower ratio than 10% is expected to be good for the banks. Interest expended to total funds of any bank is an important financial component to look at when analyzing a bank. It can be compared on a yearly basis with other banks to understand the cost efficiency of different banks. So, let us now understand from the StockEdge app that which banks have a lower ratio. So, for that, we will look at Axis Bank, Kotak Bank and State Bank of India. Okay. So, when we go to StockEdge app and check out on suppose Kotak Bank and move on to ratios. So, under the liquidity ratios, we will see interest expended to total funds. Now, let us find out if this bank compared to other banks has a lower interest expended. So, when we check out what we see that for this bank, interest expended is 3.84%. Now, let us move to Axis Bank. So, when we check out on the Axis Bank and in the fundamental ratios, we go to liquidity ratios, then what we find is that interest expended in case of Axis is 4.16. Similarly, when we go and find out about State Bank, what we find is that under the ratios, under liquidity ratios, the interest expended to State Bank is 4.01. That means when we check out on all the banks, we see that Kotak Bank has got the lowest among all the three for the interest expended. So, in case of this ratio, we can understand that Kotak Bank has the lowest of interest expenses. That means it is able to utilize its interest outgo as well as its interest income. So that means one can think of investing if in any bank, then Kotak Bank could be a good criteria. But as we know that there are not only one criteria in which we can think of and can invest. So for banking, we have many more criterias like net interest margin, like the NPA levels, like the CASA ratio. So these all, when we check out and when all of these suggest us that yes, one can invest into Kotak Bank, then we can think of investing into this bank. Otherwise, if you want to know anything more about this ratio, then what you can do is you can log on to blog.stockedge.com and there you can find out in detail about this ratio. Thank you.